Hello and welcome back to the Paranormal Podcast. I am Dan Pasella, co-founder, lead investigator for Orange County, New York Paranormal. Welcome back, everybody. And normally we come out on Wednesday, but when Halloween falls on a Tuesday, we got to come out on a Tuesday because, of course, it is the main spooky holiday of the year. It's the holiday. It's the one day that everybody thinks of the paranormal and ghosts and goblins and all that stuff. So whatever you're doing to celebrate Halloween, I hope you enjoy it and be careful, be safe out there. But we figured, why not come out a day early to celebrate this holiday? If you've been with us the whole time, thank you so much for coming back to the Paranormal Podcast. If you're new to the festivities and looking at the analytics, a lot of you are. If you're new, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We are on every major platform that you can listen to a podcast on. There is also a video component of this. If you'd like to see my stylish ghost shirt that I'm wearing today, you can check that out on YouTube, on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook, like our page, and if you're going on YouTube, please subscribe and ring the bell because we do put out investigation videos along with the video version of the Paranormal Podcast. And of course, you can find all of this also on our website at www.orangecountanynyparanormal.com. So again, as I stated earlier, happy Halloween. And, we don't have any kind of, different kind of topic for Halloween because the focus of this podcast is always on the supernatural and the paranormal. So it's kind of business as usual for us, despite coming out on a different day. But today's topic is something I really hadn't thought of until I thought of it, which, of course, right? But I was recently contacted by a reporter who was doing a story on the paranormal and real estate law. And I thought it was really interesting, and it's a great article. I'll put a link to it in the description of the episode. But it got me thinking about it, and I really wanted to expand on that topic because it's fascinating when you really break it down, what the rules are, what the rules aren't, and then the just can of worms that it opens up when you start to consider putting in the paranormal and putting it up in a court of law and stacking evidence and stacking those things together. It is not as simple as you might think. And that's what I want to talk about because, a lot of us here have everyone here's either bought a home or a condo or rented an apartment, or knew somebody who did. I would say that would amass probably close to 100% of us. Have you ever, when looking for a house or looking for a condo or looking for an apartment, asked yourself or asked the person trying to sell it to you, hey, is it haunted? Is this place haunted? And I guess, would knowing that prevent you from purchasing it or renting it? Would it entice you to do it more? I can honestly tell you, I know people on both sides of this, that some people would be like, oh my goodness, this place is haunted. I want to live here. And other people, they would run away so fast, I'm not even sure you'd see them. You just see the cloud of dust as they ran away from it. Now, most of us who do what I do, and a lot of you probably listening to this, would probably be more in the former, where it would interest you and it wouldn't, I don't know if it would necessarily coerce you into buying or renting the location, but it definitely wouldn't turn you off. It'd be more fascinating than just a hard stop in terms of showing it. And that's what this story was about, because there are places where this is not only something that they want you to talk, it's something it's law in a few places, including the place I'm currently sitting right now, which is the state of New York. So that's really what I wanted to dive into. And the article does a really, really good job of going through all of the steps and all of it. But I wanted to do more of a deep dive into my thoughts on the subject, because the more you dig, the more fascinating it becomes. So if you go on Google and look up people who bought a home, found out it was haunted, and, drama ensues, you're not going to be lacking for results on that. There are a lot of stories about that out there, and some are happy about it. Some have made it a thing. Some have sought out to learn more about the spirits. Heck, we get contacted all the time by people who have just moved into a place and want to know more about what is there. On the other side of that coin, a lot of people sue the previous owners for not disclosing that the location was haunted. And surprisingly, some have actually won that lawsuit. And it's interesting because you think about that. Whose fault is it that the new owner of the home didn't know the location was haunted? Is it the fault of the previous owner for not disclosing it? Is it the fault of the real estate agent, either for not disclosing it or maybe not even knowing it? Is it on the home buyer for not even asking the question? I mean, where does that fall on the list of questions you ask while looking at a new home? I mean, you look at the basement to see if there's water down there. You look at the plumbing. You look at the furnace. It never occurs to most people. It sure didn't occur to me to say, oh, by the way, are there any ghosts here? and it sounds ridiculous, but when you see that there's actually been litigation done on this very topic, and when then taking into account that there are 2 states in the United States that by law you must disclose whether your house is haunted. Those 2 states are New York and Minnesota. And when I learned that, my first thought was, what? Because my goodness, does that raise so many more questions when you consider that 2 states have actually said you must disclose this by law. And the reason I react that way is there are just so many questions that raises when it is law that you have to disclose whether your house is haunted. And that's what I want to dive into. Just what is going on with this, and how in the world do you prove it? So how do you prove that a house is haunted? Well, you might say, well, Dan, that's what you do as a paranormal organization. You prove that a house is haunted. Well, yes, but we investigate, okay? Sure. But what is credible evidence? It's one thing for me to present something to a homeowner and have them go, oh, okay, that's what's going on up in my attic. A court of law is a little different. And look, and the other thing is I can play you EVPs and electronic voice phenomenon and show you light anomalies. I can do that all day. But at the end of the day, if you don't believe what I'm showing you, it makes no difference. So, and that's one of the reasons I've said before that we never charge anything for anything we do, because what is transacting there? Goods and services are only being exchanged if you believe in the goods and services that I'm showing back to you. So that's tricky, because paranormal investigation, yeah, it's what we do, but it all hinges on the belief system of the person beholding that. Psychic mediums are another way that you can try to prove that a house is haunted. And look, I mean, there are legit ones. There are also folks that aren't legit. So how do you discern that? But again, if you don't believe what the medium is saying to you, it means absolutely nothing. And even if you do believe it, you could bring in a dozen mediums into a building, legit ones, and each one of them will find something different, or at least a different spin on what previous things had been found. And that's because there are all kinds of different levels of ability, and everybody's going to sense different things. And every psychic medium, there's not just 2 kinds. There are different levels of ability. Of the legit ones we've met ones that are slightly gifted. We've met ones that are almost creepy gifted to that point. So it's tricky. And when we do these investigations and events, as I've said, it's one thing to convince a homeowner or a business owner or a docent of a historical society what they have in their building. But man, a courtroom, that is completely different level of proof that you have to present. Proof that, honestly, I'm not sure that the paranormal field can present. And what do I mean by that? Well, paranormal evidence, and we've done a whole episode about paranormal evidence and the lack of standardization, but paranormal evidence doesn't hold up against scientific method. So what chance does it have in a court of law? And the reason it doesn't hold up against scientific method is the lack of a control group and the lack of standardization. But is an EVP testimony? Well, not if you don't believe it. I mean, all of the equipment that we use, cameras, recorders, thermal, EMF detectors, etc., 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 none of it would stand up in evidence in court. It just wouldn't. Every individual person has their own standard on what the definition of paranormal is. And because there's no standardization, there's no standard definition, there's no standard methodology for gathering paranormal evidence. When police are on a crime scene, or police are doing anything, a car crash to a crime scene, to a robbery, to a murder scene, they follow standard protocol procedure. You do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And the reason is, if you don't do all of that, you get thrown out of a courtroom, basically. And, people can get freed on technicalities, or people can, you can uncover evidence to implicate one person, to clear another person. These procedures are in place for a reason. There's no standard investigation procedure when you investigate the paranormal. There just isn't. Every 10,000 groups doing it 10,000 ways. I say it all the time. And that's where this also comes up against some scrutiny, because good luck finding two paranormal organizations that do everything the same way. So, and then you figure across the entire United States, or heck, let's just narrow it down to the two states where this is law: New York, Minnesota. I'll use New York because I live in New York. We operate we operate in New York. We've investigated other states, we always do, but most of our investigations have happened in the state of New York, both business, historical types, and residential types. We've met other paranormal groups in New York. They're really nice people. We don't do anything the same. I mean, we use some of the same equipment, but everybody's got their own methodology. So that just makes that impossible. Police in Minnesota and police in New York follow similar procedures as each other. Paranormal groups in the same city don't follow the same procedure. You can see where the problem would happen. Who's credible? Who isn't? Well, it depends on what you believe in. It depends on what the jury believes in. And then you got the jury. Try getting 12 people to agree on anything is hard enough, but try to get 12 people to agree on what the definition of paranormal evidence is. Get 12 people together who believe that EVPs are paranormal, that they're not fake. Get 12 people together who believe in ghosts, in spirits, and then get them to agree on what the standard definition of acceptable paranormal evidence is. Yeah, good luck with that. It's so hard. And honestly, if you think that 12 people can agree on what paranormal is, go online and get into any paranormal discussion group with investigators or with people who just go to events and do it. Go in there and see. There's no agreement. The paranormal field, honestly, there's a lot of talk about para-unity, about paranormal groups that should all be working together. And yes, that's what we should be doing. We should be working toward a better methodology and a better standardization and better definition so that we can be taken more seriously and have a chance against scientific method and in courtroom. That ain't happening. But go into these rooms. I hope it happens someday, and I'm a huge proponent of it, and I hope it does. But it ain't happening right now. But these laws are on the books right now. So go in there and see if you can get 12 people in the paranormal field to agree on what acceptable paranormal evidence is. You can't. So this is a mess because, I mean, you have to get so many people to agree on something that isn't standardized. And that's what, to me, that is just why I'm like, why would you put this in the law book? Well, it's there. And there have been instances. There is actually a home in the state of New York that is legally haunted. How they got to that definition, again, is by utilizing investigators and gathering evidence. But I mean, that team did it their way. And again, without standard procedure, who's to say whether that team got legit evidence or right evidence or even the most credible evidence they could get? There's no way of knowing because you need to bring in all 10,000 paranormal groups in New York before you could actually paint a clear picture, because everybody's going to do it differently and do it a different way. And if it sounds confusing, that's because it is. The other issue here, beyond just the tangled web of what is credible evidence and what isn't in a court of law, sometimes it's not the house that's actually haunted or the building that's actually haunted. I firmly believe that people can be just as haunted as buildings. And it's true. Spirits follow people. There are people we have met who we feel are haunted. Every home they've lived in is haunted. Every home they will ever live in is haunted. When they moved into a house it had not previously been, and when they leave, it no longer is. Objects within a home can be haunted. There's countless stories, and we've encountered things where items seem to have a spirit attached to them. Well, if the homeowner takes the item with them when they leave, the house is no longer haunted. So how does that work? How do you discern whether it's the person, whether it's an object within, or the home itself that actually has the spirit? And I will tell you, it is really, really hard to discern exactly what is the haunted item or person when you're in a place where somebody is currently living. Psychic mediums probably have better luck with this than a technical-based group like we are, but it's still hard. So a house could be haunted when the previous person lives there, and they have to disclose that by law in New York and Minnesota. However, when they leave the home, it's no longer haunted, because if the spirit is attached to either themselves or something in their home that they take with them. So now they've hurt their own value of their home through no fault really of their own. The spirit's going to follow them. The house is not going to be haunted. They may have lost prospective buyers. Now, they could also have gained prospective buyers. But can you see how this is sticky? How the amount of questions that get raised by these laws in these two states, and the fact that these laws could expand into other states, is not really well thought out, because it's not always the location itself that has the spirits. Sometimes people and objects within also have the spirits, and where they go, the spirits go too, most of the time. So what I find the most amusing about all of this is paranormal experts have trouble defining these things, so let's give bureaucracy a shot at it. Let's let the government try and define what is paranormal. And they're doing such a bang-up job on everything else that, we should be perfectly comfortable letting them have a shot at this. And I'm just curious, is this going to show up on a real estate exam someday? Normally there's questions about escrow, and there's questions about other buildings on the property or property lines. Now are we going to see questions on the real estate exam like, which of the following is an elemental spirit, A, B, C, or D? What are the tax benefits of finding a tombstone in the basement when you buy a house? And as funny as those ideas are, it might be where we're heading. Because again, we're letting, once you get bureaucracy, and these law equals government, once you get them involved, oh my goodness. I think my biggest question is, why hasn't this been made into a TV show yet? Why hasn't Sell My Haunted House been a show? And if it is, let me know in the review of the podcast or in a comment on Facebook or YouTube if it is, because I haven't seen it. But that should be a Sell My Haunted House. I think I might watch that. I don't watch paranormal TV anymore. That I might watch. And it sounds ridiculous, and that's because it is. It's a ridiculous thing. One of the themes of this podcast since day one has been how hard it is to define paranormal activity and define what is haunting a place, or what an EVP is, or what any of this is. So how can you write it in the law that you have to state your house is haunted when paranormal experts can't even agree on the definition of what is haunted. It's a really interesting article, and it's a really interesting topic, and I urge you all to go read it. I will put the link in the description of the episode. It's a fascinating topic, and it deserves a lot more conversation, a lot more focus than it's getting. This article's a good start. And put your thoughts in the review or comments. I'm curious if there's an angle on this that I may have missed, or if you have any thoughts on the angles and the topics that we discuss as to why it might be difficult to define. It's crazy, but it's on the books, and that in itself is pretty amazing. So, of course, it is Halloween, and Halloween is both good and bad. It signals it's a great holiday, but it also signals the end of a month that we really enjoy with a lot of events. We do have one more event on the calendar as part of the October events series we do, and it's the Finger Lakes Community Action Building Ghost Hunt event that is happening if you're in the Seneca Falls, New York, Lyons, New York, Rochester, New York area. There may still be some tickets left to that. I know it was selling out pretty fast. There's also the raffle they're doing to potentially join us on an investigation next year, which is kind of neat. Go on the website. I'll put a link to it in the episode here. November 3rd and 4th, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, $30 a person. All proceeds go toward Finger Lakes Community Action. It's been a great month of events. We just finished up our last night at Grapevine. Both of those they're always fun. The Grapevine events are always fun. Hyde Hall is always fun, and we're looking forward to this event up there in Lyons. But it's interesting about Halloween, like our season's definitely coming to an end. Events slow down, investigations slow down because we are in the northeastern U.S., so weather starts to play a factor in it. And it's a fascinating feeling, and I'm sure other investigators kind of feel the same way. A lot of us spend our October doing events. I've talked about our evolution of our relationship with October and all the events that we do to try to, give back to these great locations that allow us to come in and do what we do. And it's kind of strange because we're so busy right now, and it's all about to fall off a cliff because after the event on November 4th, all of a sudden, it's all just kind of done. And we go from bouncing all over to preparing presentations, to preparing events, to coordinating with locations, to coordinating with staff, to doing all of these things. Boom, 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 boom. And then it ends. And we still have another investigation video that'll come out over the next couple of weeks with the Gans house. We have to meet with the Sharon Springs Historical Society, but it pretty much grinds to a halt. And honestly, I've always found it I always have a very bittersweet feeling when Halloween hits and when it gets to be early November, because that the year is kind of winding down for us. So our investigation season, where we're the busiest, is usually from the beginning of March till now. And, while this is an all-encompassing thing, while it's really going, I don't mind the slowdown because this is all a lot of work. It's a labor of love, but it's a lot of work, a lot of travel. And as I've said many times, Emily and I, my wife and co-founder and co-investigator, we have regular full-time jobs. We don't do this professionally. We'd love to, but we don't. But it's interesting. So over the next couple of months, you will see a reduction in the amount of events that we do, and you'll see a reduction in the amount of, if you do follow us on Facebook or Instagram, which please do, you can follow all of our adventures there. We share everything we can, but it'll be reduced. And look, it's not that we stop. Paranormal investigation never stops. What we do doesn't stop. But we do slow down a little bit. And I think most groups do. I'm envious of those who live in the more temperate climate areas, because there's no blizzards that you have to look for when you book a January investigation. But as we come to the end of October, it's so much fun, and it's just it's bittersweet because these events, the months that we do these events, are so much fun, and when it ends, there's a little bit of sadness there. Even though it's going to slow down a little bit. The podcast will continue. We will continue our bi-weekly releases on the podcast because, honestly, we're getting a lot of new listeners. I have been so surprised, and I'm so thankful for the amount of folks that are downloading these episodes and listening to them. I honestly didn't think we would have this level of listenership or viewership at this rate. We've only been doing this since April, and thank you for tuning in. And this will keep us busy. This will keep us sharp, and we will continue to release episodes. But I thought it was interesting. I wanted to give you a little bit of insight on how, as paranormal investigators, how we're feeling. You know, Halloween is awesome, but when it's over, man, it slows down, and it's bittersweet, like I said. And but we will still continue to bring you content and information, and we still investigate during those times. It's just slower than it is, but it's a break that man, is well deserved, because our group, we work very hard to do what we do. So the slowdown helps us refuel, because, you know, as this grows, as we continue to grow, and we just have more and more events and more investigations, and it's awesome. And as always, we will be bringing all of it to you. But that being said, another Halloween come and gone. Man, we blink, and we blink and we'll be here next year. Time is just amazing how much it flies. My parents were right. The older you get, the faster it goes. And you know, we think back to all the events and all the stuff we've done, and it's just great. So whatever you're doing for Halloween, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you're safe. And, you know, and now we'll have the focus on the holidays. Trust me, at 10 o'clock tonight, the commercials will all switch over to Christmas trees. Happens all the time. But 10 o'clock, October 31st, you'll see that first commercial from Macy's or for Walmart or something, and there'll be trees all over it. So enjoy this, because all, you know, Mariah Carey and Michael Bublé and Josh Groban, they're coming. They're coming. Pretty soon, it's all you're going to hear on the radio or the Christmas song. So enjoy. If this is your favorite holiday, as it is for many, as it is for a lot of us, enjoy this, because it's about to shift over into Christmas trees in about, you know, 12 hours from when this podcast comes out. But, you know, and then holiday ends, we'll get into fall, we'll get into winter, and but if over the winter and for the rest of this year or early next year, you are planning on doing some house hunting, make sure you do a little ghost hunting while you're at it, especially if you live in New York or in Minnesota. You know, dream homes, they come in all shapes and sizes, but as it turns out, if you don't ask the right questions, you can end up buying a house that's anything but normal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Halloween, and we'll catch you next time on the Paranormal Podcast.